Oscar Acoustics is a family-run business. We're in our 44th year now, and we specialise in spray-applied acoustic architectural finishes. New research from the HSE shows that over 1 million employees in Great Britain are now exposed to levels of noise which are putting their hearing at risk, whilst 14,000 are estimated to have work-related hearing problems. The issue is systemic, and we know from our own research that many managerial workers are in the dark when it comes to their own responsibility around Noise at Work Act. Over a third were unaware, 35%, and just 38 knew roughly about the correct rules and guidelines. Current regulations stipulate that 87 dB is the maximum level of noise that workers should be exposed to. When put into context of a warehouse setting, forklift trucks clattering around operate at an average of 90 dB. This presents companies with a whole host of safety issues. So what options are available to warehouse managers, owners looking to safeguard their staff? One of the most effective ways to combat excessive noise is through the use of specially adapted acoustic sprays. They can be applied to nearly any surface, including walls and ceilings, and allow sound to be absorbed rather than reflecting it. Often warehouses are jam-packed with hard surfaces, which allow sound to bounce, rising to dangerous levels if left unchecked. A great example I like to use is a restaurant. This restaurant too is packed with hard surfaces and could have a reverberation time of 3 seconds plus. You're at your table, you're chatting to your friends, and you say the word cat. That word would bounce around the room for 3 seconds until it decayed by 60 dB. Within that 3 seconds, you continue talking and you say between 7 to 10 more words. Now, all of those words are bouncing around the room, becoming tangled and hitting you from all angles, which makes it hard to understand what's being said. And this is happening on multiple tables, creating a sonic battleground. So what do? You talk louder. This, of course, increases the volume within the space and makes it harder to understand. And the restaurant is now getting busier and the issue's getting worse. People are leaning towards the centre of the table to understand their friends. The alcohol's now kicking in and the place is getting crazy. Nobody's noticed that there's music playing, but this all along has been adding to the problem. In the taxi on the way home, some people are leaving a review on TripAdvisor about noise levels, and 25%, according to research, will never return, meaning the restaurant is constantly having to attract new customers to stay in business. And here's the point. You choose not to return as the experience was unpleasant and carried a level of stress you were unprepared to pay for again. But if this is your workplace, what do? With financial pressures and a family to feed, it's not always easy to go and find another job. Okay, restaurants are an extreme case, but it demonstrates the point perfectly. High levels of poor sound quality are stressful and make people unhappy. Sometimes they don't even realise they feel like this. They just dread going to work. An employee like this is not productive and can even become toxic. What most employers don't realise is that prolonged high noise levels can actually cause serious non-hearing related health problems. The Chief Medical Officer in England, pre-COVID, said that second only to air pollution in damaging public health, while the World Health Organization, who we've heard quite a lot about in the last few years, highlights issues such as tinnitus, sleep disturbance, heart disease, obesity, diabetes, adverse birth outcomes, and cognitive impairment in children. But there is other noise-related safety concern that should be taken just as seriously when it comes to warehousing or fulfillment centres. High noise levels in the past have led to the use of ear defenders. The problem with ear defenders is you can't hear fork trucks coming or warnings from colleagues about falling objects. Even without ear defenders, reverberant spaces tangle the sound so much that you still may not be able to hear the vehicle coming or an important warning. Emergency safety announcements are also difficult to decipher, especially for those with hearing conditions like tinnitus. Simon Wayne is Operations Director of Parcels and Post at Ascendia and has a career in e-commerce and fulfillment at major UK retailers. He says, mechanical handling equipment is noisy. There's the beeping, the reversing vehicles, and from a safety perspective, being able to hear any warnings, beeps, etc. is very important. One very relevant thing in the last 2 years is COVID. In noisy warehouses, you tend to get closer to talk to people and you're shouting in their faces to be heard. Voice picking is used a lot within the e-commerce sector. That's where warehouse operatives use a headset which gives picking instructions. Users have to acknowledge instructions verbally. Now, these systems are highly sensitive and have noise suppression. They can be badly affected by noisy warehouses. It's much more difficult for people to hear instructions with fork trucks clattering around in the background or going over uneven concrete. A noisy warehouse environment thus becomes challenging to manage. So acoustic sprays are the perfect solution, dampening sound to create a safer and healthier working environment. As well as impressive acoustic performance capabilities, they're an obvious choice for warehouse owners looking for a speedy solution and minimal downtime. In most cases, installation can be finished with just one application, allowing logistics to continue as normal in the shortest time possible. We did this very thing for FedEx not long ago. If all this wasn't enough, Sonar Spray can actually add to the thermal performance of a space, reducing the heating and cooling bills, or even enabling you to reduce the specification depth of the thermal roof sheet, so you can allow the acoustic spray to do more of the work. This image is an IKEA basement car park. The product was originally used for this very reason in some of the hottest places across the world until they realised what an amazing effect it had on sound. The range has come a long way since then and is now used in all sorts of projects. This is Sonar Spray FCX, a trialled version, and it's applied directly onto the GRG ceiling. And this one's Gensler's new European HQ in London and was sprayed throughout the entire building for acoustic control. The R value of Sonar Spray is 0.03 per millimetre. So as an example, 100 millimetres of Sonar Spray K13 would give you a U value of 0.03. With thinner or thicker application depths available, depending on your requirement, you can achieve anything. Acoustically, though, 12 to 30 millimetres is plenty for most spaces. The Sonar Spray range is made from recycled paper and treated to achieve a Class O fire rating to BS 476 and an EU rating of B-S1D0, which means little or no smoke and no droplets, aiding in a safe escape. It's the only acoustic spray to be assessed by the testing body UL as being safe for use over cementitious fire sprays. Cementitious fire sprays are not normally the tidiest of applications, so it's ideal for covering them and acoustically treating and thermally treating your warehouse office space. Sonar Spray is the only acoustic product allowed within 50 millimetres of intumescent steel coatings without invalidating the fire rating. Our detail combined with superb fire performance enables us to spray right up to them, omitting the requirement for expensive and unsightly stop beads, which can also add a lot to the time of the program. It can also add value to the property by having great environmental credentials and enabling full BREEAM points. Studies shown that in some cases higher rents and occupancy levels can be achieved with higher BREEAM ratings. So it contributes to each of these environmental accreditations. It's also a low emitting building material. So it achieves, it's M1 classified, which is the best you can get for a building material, compliant with the California Department of Public Health, Green Guard Gold, BREEAM's rating for air quality. It's also got EPDs in accordance with ISO 14025, and it can contribute up to 17 points towards the lead score of a project. All installations are carried out by fully trained in-house teams, which is important. That's all they do all the time. So it's not a dry lining company having a go at a spray job every now and again. They specialise in it. And to complete the environmental jigsaw, Oscar Acoustics are ISO 14001 certified. So due to popularity of the product, we've hugely outgrown our current premises and are about to start building our new 16,000 square foot Oscar Innovation Centre. This comprises of a large warehouse and product development facility cloaked by a brick facade, hiding the warehouse from the road and the houses opposite. The long building is 6 separate double-height industrial units, some of which will initially be let to local innovative companies on short-term lets. This will give Oscar Acoustics room for further growth. The scheme's been designed with urban and rural architects and has been welcomed by the local community. It's had no opposition at all from anyone around, including all the houses opposite, which was nice. I'm not going to go into too much detail on this today, as I'm going to save the whole project for a future presentation. It's extremely exciting for us, though, as you can imagine. The plan's to make it a great place to work whilst fulfilling our storage and logistics needs, which have become challenging. In order to aid collaboration, the space is to be open plan with bifold partitions for private meetings and presenting webinars like this. It's also being designed as a show home for all our acoustic products, so please do let us know if you'd like to visit once built. And to finish off, here's an image of part of the warehouse just to keep it relevant. The plan eventually is to install a mezzanine level as well to increase capacity further still as we grow. So that's it from me. Thank you very much. Please do follow us on social media channels or send me a LinkedIn invite to see our projects. You can also download our latest white paper on acoustic treatment in the workplace, which is fascinating. The results are great. I'm Ben Hancock. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Ben. Just a quick question about the sonar spray. I mean, you obviously in factory environments, you've kind of put it at a really high level. Now, I remember, I think it was sonar spray, was it, that got used at the Blavatnik? It's obviously quite, it's very tactile, but I'm sure you probably don't want to be running your hands all over it. I mean, it is very spongy and nice, but would you kind of advise that you kind of generally keep it out of hands reach?
So if you were to use it, say, for instance, in a sports hall, that's about the harshest environment you can get. Normally, we'd say put it above head height, and then it's out of the way and it's doing its job. It might get hit by footballs and what have you, but that really doesn't matter. Okay. If you were to need it at lower level in a factory, there is actually a harder coating that can be sprayed over it. And what they've done in the past is to spray it on the walls at low level, but actually put a handrail maybe 500 mil away, and that does the job.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's quite. I mean, just as I was thinking about it more generally when you were talking about the issues of kind of noise within office spaces, and I mean, obviously, there's with new workspaces and stuff. Obviously, I suppose your products are more specified because everybody wants to kind of see the the concrete soffits and the kind of the exposed surface aesthetic that's going on. It's been popular now for probably decades, but more so now, I think. But I certainly know that noise is, I mean, do you think COVID has had an effect? Because I certainly know that in our workplace and even at the RIBA that we've got more echoes because actually I think there's more resistance to using fabric materials within office environments to kind of deal with, to kind of soak up the sound because obviously you can't clean it, it's harder to kind of manage. So in terms of facilities management, I think we're seeing more hard surfaces getting introduced into office spaces because they're just easier to keep clean and use that antibacterial finishes on cleaning products. So do you find that there's actually kind of more noise within workspaces? Do you feel that?
There definitely is. You see a lot of, Instagram, you see a lot of photos with bare rib deck or concrete slabs in offices. It just creates this sonic battleground, a term I love now, which is why the sprays are ideal because on the most part, you put them on the ceiling and they're just there out of their way doing their job. And if you're installing it in a warehouse, we'd recommend I mean, you probably don't want to go for the white finish. We've put white in Jaguar Land Rover's factory plant, but that's a fairly clinical thing. If you've got a factory or warehouse with dust, you might go for a light grey or a mid-grey, something like that. So it's ideal.
We've got a question from Adam Pearson saying, what's the product made of and what under its constituents source? Well, I think you answered the first part of the question, but maybe not the second.
Okay. Yeah. So it is made of 90% post-consumer recycled paper. And then it's got water-based adhesives as well. So, which is why it manages to achieve all these incredible environmental credentials, and also the emissions as well. Emissions are a big thing now. You want low-emitting materials within your workspace, and that includes warehousing as well. It's no different. It's just a workplace.
And a question from a staffer saying, is it fire resistant? Well, I think you noted that as being compliant with BS 476 and with Class O fire rating.
That's it. And actually on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, there's this fascinating in a nerdy way, but fascinating comparison. It was a fire test that was done, and it's been visualized in an animation, and they were comparing a fiberglass with a sauna spray, and they had the flame burners going underneath, and it was up to about, I think it got up to maybe 10 minutes, and the fiberglass had just completely disappeared, and it was actually burning the test bay. Our stuff was in place for 20 minutes. It was all still intact, and it was actually protecting what was underneath. There's a world famous film studios as well that had a very big fire not too long ago, and I went to view the studios afterwards, and our finish was pretty much the only thing still intact. That and the frame, but yeah, it was nice to see. Well, not
it looks like that one will kind of work to your advantage in your new HQ, which I hope to visit at some point in order to see quite how much sound you're absorbing. I mean, it'll probably sound pretty much like a radio studio, I hope, or at least that's what I'm...
Yes, that's it. You're quite welcome.
No, I'll pop along. Thank you very much indeed, Ben.